Bonjour à tous. Good morning, everyone. Je suis Claudine Blondin Bronfman, présidente du conseil d'administration de C2 Montréal. Je me joins à vous ce matin pour vous remercier de prendre part à l'aventure C2 en ligne, Montréal 2020. I'm honored to be introducing this morning's first side chat with digital marketing pioneer Gary Vaynerchuk on how to be an outsider but still be successful. Gary V's drive, vision, outsider mindset have defined his career. These traits are among most important for today's entrepreneurs, many of whom strives to answer the simple question: how can we do what we do, but differently? This desire to think differently and innovate is what defines us here in Montreal and at C2 Montreal. It is also what defines each of you, not only as participant in this event, but as an agent of change and of recovery in these critical years to come. Our goal is to bring together like-minded professionals and fuel this ambition of creating positive change. C2 Montreal was born in 2008 from the idea that synergies between commerce and creativity would bring prosperity back to Montreal. Now more than ever, we have to push our boundaries to define new horizons. I hope you learn, you connect, and get inspired by your experience here. Thank you all for being part of the solution. Merci beaucoup et bonne conférence.
La prochaine conférence vous est présentée par The following talk is presented to you by LENOVO. Mesdames et messieurs, ladies and gentlemen, veuillez accueillir, please welcome Gary Vaynerchuk en conversation avec In Conversation with Shira Lazar.
Welcome to C2, this first virtual iteration of C2. I'm a Montrealer. I'm Shira Lazar and was at C2 last year in person, so it's great to be involved again from Venice, California, basically in my bedroom. Makes it, I guess, a bit easier. I also want to say hi to everyone joining from around the world. Let us know where you're from in the chat, although I'm very sad that I can't be home. So this is good, but it would be nice to be home with my family and all of you right now. But this is good enough, of course. With that said, audience interaction is at the core of the C2 experience. So I encourage you to submit your questions for Gary on the right-hand side of your screen. I'll be asking some of these questions towards the end of the session. So thank you again for joining us and interacting as well. Gary, it is so great to see you in these crazy circumstances right now here at C2.
It's great to see you, Shira. Thank you so much to everybody at C2. I am also pretty devastated. C2 has always fallen in that first weekend in May, which has always been my mom's birthday weekend, and my mom is my mom and my hero, so I never travel on that weekend. So for about 7 or 8 years, I've dreamed of doing C2. When it first kind of hit my radar about a decade ago, have been invited in the past, was devastated that I could never really make it logistically work. So under these wild circumstances, I'm glad to be here, but I'm hurting a little bit because some of the restaurant, I grew up in the wine business, and yes, the restaurant and wine scene in Montreal is something I admire very much. So I too wish I was there.
Exactly. Well, we'll have to have a drink in person, hopefully at a certain point soon. But I just want to ask you this, because I'm asking a lot of people this when I interview them right now. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. The reality is, and it's really fun to do this with you, Shira, because we've known each other a long, long time and have been through this journey together. I think you know me, which is, I'm a simple dude in a lot of ways. I'm very out there, but I'm quite small and private in my actual real life. And what I mean by that is, as long as the 15 people I love the most in the world, and then call it the next 100 or so closest friends in the world. Luckily, that graph has gone through this process so far with a bunch of health and nothing that it has really caused deep despair. And my business challenges, which have been substantial this year, are just not, even though I'm known to everybody in this audience, I'm sure, or the people that know me in this audience as an entrepreneur, and of course in public, that's what I talk about. it's a very distant second to how I live my life. And what I mean by that is business struggles are just so not important in a world where, millions of people have lost their life prematurely during this pandemic. And I think we people going through war or tragedy, they become accustomed to their reality. I don't take it lightly that I've been able to navigate so far through this pandemic with the people I love the most being healthy. And so when you ask me how I'm doing great because that thing's in place. As far as business, and creativity and all the things we'll talk about here, there's plenty of challenges, but in a lot of ways, I like being an entrepreneur. And I think the wartime, the tough times of entrepreneurship for me in a little weird way are interesting. And I enjoy the tough times, the 9/11s, the great recessions, the pandemic from a business standpoint. Obviously those are horrific things, but from a business standpoint, I'm up for the challenge. And I've been very focused to try to lead my organizations, and so that's what I'm focusing on, the optimism of it.
Well, I appreciate that transparency because I think people see you and they see that, the hustle and the wins, and it feels like a lot of success. And for you to share that, it's been challenging business wise, and I've had some failures. Can you get into some of those, failures and the lessons you've learned from them, or how you've navigated that?
Our VaynerMedia is the company that most people know, if they even know me outside of, I always laugh when people are like, he's a motivational speaker. I'm like, man, I need to do a better job branding because I spend 98% of my time running a 1,000-person global company. The lesson learned, I'll go backwards, is something I've always known, but it's always a great reminder, which is you are not in control. Vayner Productions, our production company, and Vayner Speakers, our speaking bureau, were incredibly in place to have tremendous years because of the work we did in 2019. Both have gone to zero, basically, because there's just no way to navigate this reality. So that's happened. That's been a challenge. It's tough to stand up businesses that are losing lots of money. It's not what you sign up for. VaynerMedia, the core business, had a lot of clients push out their payment terms, cancel business, go out of business. That led to the part that most breaks my heart, which is, 80 employees over a 4-month period had to be furloughed and let go. I know these people. I know that their mom is sick. I know that they've been here for 5 years. It's so lonely. And especially because I don't hide. So my company knows every decision goes through my desk. Everything that's a problem is my fault. Accountability is something that the world really doesn't like to do right now, but I think it is a liberator. And so when somebody reaches out, can I talk to you after they've been let go? They've been with you for 6.5 years, and that they know that you signed off on them being let go. That is as uncomfortable as it gets. I've learned, here's something that I think is going to really bring value to the audience, I hope, even if it's for one person. On stage, I am unbelievably candorous, right? Gary, I love your no bullshit style. In real life, and again, Shira, it's fun to do this with you because you have you know me a little bit more than most people because we've spent time at South by and different things. I'm very soft as like a human, which means my greatest shortcoming as a professional has been candor, believe it or not, to my employees. And so through this period, I've leaned into candor, and it's helped me. And so I've learned the value of candor. I view candor now as kindness. I used to view candor as being mean. I really did. I didn't have a good relationship with candor. I looked at it as like hurting somebody's feelings, and I was so talented in business that I would be like, I'll put this on my back. But what I was doing was not communicating, building resentment, and then eventually firing, which caught people off guard and led to so I've learned candor during this time, or I've taken my candor game from a 2 to 6 during this period, which I really enjoy, and I'm aiming for 8 or 9.
It seems like having uncomfortable conversations, and not just on stage and on social media, but like in person, which is actually more intimate and real, right?
On stage, I'm talking to the world. I'm talking in the macro.
Yeah.
You know, why do I like Q&A? And please, everybody who's watching, get very detailed with any of the questions you have. In Q&A, in real life, you go micro, you go detailed. And so on stage, when I'm telling you, hey, the world, you know, don't worry about your parents' opinion, that's right to lead to happiness and lack of resentment, you know, but in real life, when Ricky loves his parents, it gets much harder.
It's easier said than done. I love this. And this is like the personal growth, Gary, that I love to see. But a lot of people here, obviously marketing and in media. And they're also, I think there's a lot of, now we're all entrepreneurs in a way. Even if we work with a big company, you could say the division can be like a startup. You probably see so much and get pitched so much. How do you know when something is worth taking on or moving into as an industry or a project? Like, what's your filter, including right now?
My filter is really my personal opinion based on data or intuition around actual consumer behavior. I think my career has gone really well because I don't overcomplicate things. Do people use this? How do people like it? Do I understand how it can grow? And so Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, you know, Venmo, those investments were really thoughtful, and I did quite well. And that was around the time we'd started to know each other in those early mid-2000s, South by era. Those were common sense investments by me. I knew that they were good platforms. I knew people were using them. I could see where this was going. The mobile device was something I bet on, so it made sense. The thing I learned after I made those good investments, the next tier of bad investments, the theses were right, but the entrepreneurs weren't strong. What was different about 2003, 4, 5, 6 was a Kevin Rose, a Travis, a Mark Zuckerberg, you know, a Tara Hunt. These people were actually entrepreneurs, and technology had come. As entrepreneurship exploded and money started coming in, you had a lot of people that were executives or worse, nightlife promoters, you know, kind of just like coming in and thinking they could build billion-dollar tech companies. And where I got caught was I liked the thesis, but I misunderstood. I would look through the lens of if I ran the company. And there were great companies and even good entrepreneurs, Gawala, Highlight, some of these things that, you know, really were great. What the miss was the entrepreneur's ability, even if they were strong in the case of those two companies, to really navigate the business to be a business. And so I learned a lot in that era. So today what I look at is the jockey and the horse. Do I like the horse, the app, the idea, the business? Do I like the thesis do I believe that people are going to eat healthier and those foods are going to do well? Yes. But I'm spending a lot more time looking at the jockey. Is this just a great, you know, student that went to McGill or Harvard or Brown and just has a great resume, but are they actually an entrepreneur? Do they have patience? Are they just good at raising capital, or are they good at leading men and women? You know, is she capable of pivoting when it doesn't work? Rachel Tipograph, you know, at Micmac is investment I'm involved in for everybody in e-commerce. You should check out Micmac. I knew Rachel was capable. It's an e-commerce platform for omni-channel brands. If you sell on Target and Walmart and your own DTC and on Instagram, it's a SaaS business that really makes that effective. I knew that she would pivot, and she started as a QVC of mobile, and now she's a SaaS product that is enabling the biggest brands in the world to win on e-commerce. That's a big pivot. I saw that in her eyes. That's what I'm looking for, the jockey and the horse.
I love that. How do you come into an already inundated space and make a mark, or do you? And this could go for entrepreneurship or brands that say like,
you outperform, you know, absolutely, right? You know, like going into the car industry is hard, but if Tesla makes a better product and navigates better, it can win. Actually, you know what's really funny that you said that? I've been thinking a lot about search engines lately. I have this weird, almost like out of body feeling that Google could be disrupted.
Well, they have an antitrust issue right now. So
fair enough. And to be honest with you, I'm undereducated on that. And wasn't the premise. The premise was,
I know.
You know, that it just has been the leader for a long time. Right? You know, like Apple with the mobile, like why can't BMW or Tesla or Instagram come out with a hardware phone. Or something left field, 2 young gals in Berlin just are hardware geniuses. I think people get caught. I made a lot of smart decisions, money, business success on understanding that people looked at print and radio and television and they put it on a pedestal and they didn't see Facebook and Google. I now am actually starting to feel that Facebook and Google and Apple are now the vulnerable. And I'm kind of getting excited for who wants to go, like, who's going to make the greatest TV set that's fully integrated for shopping? Like, I don't know what it is, but and then my hairs are going up my back right now. I think some of the biggest things we know are on the precipice of being disrupted, or things like Microsoft. I mean, I'm very impressed by Microsoft the last 2 years, 3 years with their new CEO, just being more contemporary, making good macro decisions, LinkedIn, tripling down on gaming. Like, so those are the things running through my mind. You can disrupt by just outperforming.
I mean, that's well said. And then I think also understanding those communities, like not coming in, like if you're coming into TikTok, there's a lot going on. You need to be embedding yourself and having people oversee that project who are in that community. I think also that's where companies make mistakes sometimes.
For sure. And look, you're an early mover. You and I talked about Musical.ly and TikTok 3 years ago. Yeah. Right. So you've had a career, YouTube, and you and I with video, YouTube Vidler, those days. You've always had a strong knack at understanding where the consumer's attention was early. So you've been able to now, we're not as young as we used to be, Shira. So we've now had some reps. Speak for myself. I know. I was trying to set up. Anyway, I think that what you've seen is, you're exactly right. And the flip side, there's just different dynamics. The greatest commercial that Ocean Spray has ever made was made by Dogface, for them. So you just have all these dynamics of creativity, back to the macro context of this festival. Yeah. I think being an entrepreneur is actually wildly creative if you're an entrepreneur. I think a lot of people view themselves as entrepreneurs, but what they are is operators. They're very good at Excel sheet, finance, raising capital. And so I think inherently entrepreneurship is one of the most creative things of all time, because everything is a blank canvas. Everything's a blank canvas for me. I'm always looking at angles of like the not yet established, because that is always where the most excitement is. And I think a lot of people watching right now can resonate with that statement.
Yeah. And speaking of TikTok, because I want to get into some platforms that right now are hot, but where do we see them maybe in a year to even more than that? So with TikTok being very politicized, even almost shut down, where do you think it is headed in the next year from now? Should people be putting their efforts into that?
I think that putting your efforts into something's always fascinated me, because when Seinfeld or MASH or The Cosby Show were the #1 show on television, people ran commercials, right? When Sports Illustrated was the biggest magazine, or Vogue, you ran print. I have no emotion if Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Snapchat disappear tomorrow. I care that today they have an extraordinary amount of attention on them, and communicating organically or through paid media amplification of creative is a very effective and efficient way. And so if TikTok, listen, I did damage, meaning, let me use my own slang, I have to define it sometimes. I was able to build awareness and growth on Vine, on Social Cam, on Plurk, on Vidler. Those things don't exist anymore, and that's okay. Facebook used to be my Facebook fan page was my religion 48 months ago. I haven't even thought about it in the last month, which is actually something I'm trying to change, and so.
Well, yeah. How do you know, like Gary, how do you know when to stop those things? I think that people are like, I don't want to stop because then I'll get out of the algorithm. Like, when do you know to take breaks on those platforms? Or
when you're not happy, it's funny, even when you said hustle earlier, when I talk about work ethic, AKA hustle, I talk about it from a happiness filter. I've been very sad that people have tried to bucket me into like hustle porn or burnout. I really have, because if you look at every word out of my mouth, not the energy in which I deliver it, but the words I've talked about. It's about the happiness of your process. This is a very big deal to me. So the answer to your question is, when do you stop something? When you're not happy. If you're opening Twitter and you're anxious, I don't care how well you're winning on Twitter business-wise. You need to find a different relationship with a different platform, or reassess your relationship with the platform. That is the main reason you should stop. The second reason is, if you don't have unlimited resources and time, you need to look at the platforms that are most achieving what you want, whether that is money, whether that is happiness, hopefully happiness over money, whether that is awareness growth that you may later use for happiness, whether that's raising money for your PTA, running for mayor, selling a sneaker. You have to reverse engineer what you're about. For me, this is, and again, something and I keep referencing this because there's not that many people that actually know me more than what they see online. The reason South by worked for me is, and you've seen it, the reason there was a secret wine party is I love people. The reason social media worked for me is I loved people. I love spending hours in comments and replying. The reason Community, the app, works for me is I like texting people. 212-931-5731. And so I like people. So it's worked for me. But if you don't force yourself, or if the platform started off fun for you, Instagram, because it was photography, but now it's influencer life and you don't like it, you don't have to. What you have to do is force yourself to debate how happy you are. You don't have to do anything other than try to strive for that, because it really matters.
But then if you have a company, in the end, don't you need to just overcome that hump and say, this is what I need to do to build my company?
Listen, I'm a fan of being able to create skin to deal with adversity. But I see a lot of people that have a $3 million a year business go for 5 and love it at 3 and hate it at 5. What I think people need to do is try to find a financial happiness graph and then live their lives within those means. So to me, what I think a lot about is, yes, there's things you have to do, but a lot of times people feel they have to do something for their business because they have a BMW and a fancy house and they want to buy a $6,000 pair of shoes. My debate in that analogy is, hey, maybe if you didn't spend money on things that are closing the gap of your happiness and actually lived within the means of a business or a job that makes you happy, and you lived within those means, maybe then you could have a very healthy circle instead of what I see a lot, which is people think success is money, and then they start buying things because they actually need those things to cover up their unhappiness, and it becomes this vicious circle. I think this is about managing your own P&L, not getting too into debt. It's why I worry about college a lot. College, for a lot of people, brings no actual value financially, maybe spiritually or happiness or fun times or memories. And what it does is it starts them off in a place where they have to strive for money, and they're never able to get out of that mistake, and they're 42 years old, still in debt, and lived a life doing something they didn't love, but they thought they had to do it to pay down their debt.
Yeah, it gets people started in scarcity. You're saying really resonates, and I could get into that, but I'm not going to get into it too much. But I think that hopefully everyone on a personal and professional level has taken something from that, because I do think that money brings anxiety. And the minute you take that anxiety out and you simplify, there's actually a lot of freedom, including creative freedom. That's where creativity can thrive. And so I want to, because we do have a lot of...
Real quick. Yep,
yeah, what?
Real quick.
Yeah, what? Yep.
I think when you look under the hood of pure entrepreneurship, those women and men love the process. I was 34 years old before I made a video. I just loved building my dad's liquor store for him. I loved it. And entrepreneurship and creativity have become convoluted a little bit, and people think it's about money, and the demonization of that is unfortunate, but I understand it, because a lot of people do go in there with a very unhealthy starting point. But I think when you get back to process and enjoyment of it, this is why I still garage sale. I actually enjoy it. People make fun of me on my content.
I know. I can't believe that. I am amazed. So you're doing the garage sales. You have your cards right now, which is mind blowing. Yes. Is there a business around cards? Should companies be like, I'm going to make a card now? Because there's a huge business around that now.
There's moments around cards, and I think Pokemon is some of the most creative stuff, and I think you watch trends. And do I think that influencers should think about starting their own card lines? And do I think brands should? Yes, I do. And then, by the way, like Pogs, like cards, like fashion, sometimes jeans are low and baggy. Other times they're tight and high. It just evolves. And if you're not signed up for the evolution of creativity, well, then you might as well change your profession.
So what platforms should people be looking at right now, and then, looking out for the next year or so, or 2 years, to start investing in, or, putting their time into that? Or trends that if there's platforms that come up. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've become more thoughtful in this answer. I'm pretty excited about answering this because I think I have a nice way to break it down. I want to break it down into organic and paid. When I hear what platforms should people be paying attention to, I used to answer blindly, and I didn't give I didn't answer blindly. I gave the current state, but I didn't break down this point, and I think this will help a lot of people. If you're talking about organic, not running social media ads to achieve whatever you want, then you got to talk TikTok and LinkedIn, because those are the two platforms where you can get organic reach. Every person here with no audience can go make a video, a picture, a written word, post it on those platforms and start building audience, because there's still not enough content to fill the pipes of the consumption. If you're talking ads, now you talk Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube pre-roll, Facebook's a monster, especially if you're targeting 45 to 90-year-olds, Instagram stories and Instagram
90-year-olds.
Well, sure, there's a lot of businesses to sell to 90-year-olds.
Oh my God, are 90-year-olds even on Facebook?
90-year-olds dominate Facebook. Facebook
90?
Yes, 90, Shira. One day you'll be 90, and you're going to want to be on the Facebook at the time because you're going to care about your granddaughter, and you're going to care about this, and you're going to care about issues and memories and connecting with your long-lost friends from 60 years ago. So anyway, nonetheless, it's an organic and paid split. Organic for everybody out there with not the means to run media. It's TikTok and LinkedIn. Media, it's really heavy. Facebook, Instagram. TikTok itself also has a great ad product. LinkedIn does as well, actually, if you're trying to sell B2B. But YouTube pre-roll, then the chasm opens up, because then they all become underpriced if you really know how to media plan inside of them. Because right now, the biggest companies in the world still don't spend enough on social media platform marketing, which means the ads are underpriced in comparison to programmatic digital or print or radio or television.
But do you see brands wanting to have a more holistic spend? So they'll go to an agency and say, okay, we want you to handle all of it. Like it'll be the TV, print, out of home, social, or do you see it still as divided?
It goes both ways. I'm very proud of where VaynerMedia is. We came from community management and social to now doing 3 Super Bowl spots last year, full creative AOR for Scott's, where the media and creative AOR, like the Mad Men era. So we've definitely evolved up. And I think that some of the great iconic creative shops are in need of coming down, because when they think of social, creative, and media as an afterthought, a nice to have, or that silly little thing that's not as important as this creative thing up here, it's going to make them quite vulnerable in the next decade.
Yeah. What do you think of texting platforms like you mentioned, community, that you're on? How can brands and companies use that?
I mean, I launched something for my dad called Wine Text. Anybody who buys wine, please sign up for Wine Text. That has transformed his business in 18 months, has literally brought the business back to the levels of when I was there in my prime.
Wow.
So I think using text the way we use email is showing results like the late 90s. Huge open rates, huge engagement, huge conversion. We'll ruin it like we did with email over the next decade. Hopefully we learn from email and we don't just make it spam, offer. So
what's the strategy around that so you don't troll people? Because I feel but I'm a bit older, so getting texts as promotion or from brands, it's weird to me because it's such a personal feed.
Not if it brings you extraordinary value, right? The reason wine texts work, for example, is we're selling $80 wine for $30, period, end of story. And so because we only have to offer 365 wines a year, we're using our buying power, we're throwing a huge buying team at it, and we're able to get that. And so it's not going to be weird if you get your favorite product for a disproportionately better price. There you go.
What about you though? But you're everywhere. How are you making your brand different over text?
I'm replying, and something about the intimacy of getting a
versus
text
a DM.
Sure, versus a DM. Sure, when I tell you that if Randy the Macho Man Savage texted me back in 1987, I'd still be talking about it. Heck, I'm making pretend it happened right now and I'm still talking about it. When you care about somebody and they text you back and it's not a bot, that gets exciting. And I think we all appreciate an acknowledgement, a wink, a head nod, a looking up when they signed a book and saying hi, whatever us getting acknowledgement from somebody we admire has always been a human trait. And I think texting and replying, there's a level of even more oomph. I mean, people go crazy and are excited when somebody likes their post. When they get a DM, it's all time. When you get a text, it's all time, at least in the current state of communication.
We're about to get to your questions, and please continue to include them in the comments, in the chat. What industries are interesting to you right now as an investor?
I apologize, one more time.
What industries are interesting to you right now as an investor?
Direct-to-consumer brands that are actually sustainable and aren't just good at internet CAC and LTV numbers, but are actually holistic in building brand and building macro LTV. I think every category, soap, glasses, toothbrushes, rings, every single category will have winners over the next 20 years in the consumer product land. Anything you buy at a Costco or a Sainsbury or a Walmart or any big store around the world will every product in those stores, convenience stores, every product in those stores will become something that goes direct to consumer. So there's unbelievable amounts of opportunity there. I think the other thing that really is interesting to me is voice. I'm very high on voice AI, Alexa, Google Home, Apple Home, but I think those things are going to play out over the next decade. So that's a little early, but I'm watching it very carefully because I think humans, the reason I bet on this was because people don't like friction. The reason I'm going to bet on voice is people don't like friction. Hey, Alexa, send me a pizza. That's fast. And that will be real life. Somebody's going to play that out. It may not be the way we see it now. It might come through a phone. It might be clothes that has a loop. It might be a hat. It might be glasses. It might be the paint that is smart paint in your home. I don't know who wins the voice game, but I know the voice game will be won because it's faster than grabbing your phone and doing it on your phone. And speed always wins.
Yeah. And you said it's too early, so I'm going to wait and see. At what point then do you come
Take me when something hits, it's the same, I watched Friendster and MySpace, and then it was like, wait a minute, this is happening with Facebook. That's when I hit social media. 2 years ago, I went to Amazon's Techstars incubator around building apps on Alexa, meeting people, talking about it in public. I say it here. 3 people email me, Gary@VaynerMedia.com. Hey, I heard you say this at C2. I'm doing this. Take the meeting, meet the kid, meet the person, meet the OG, then be educated, then hit when I feel it's time.
So it seems, can it be ever tiring? Like, do you ever get tired? How much sleep do you get? And we're going to get to the questions. I just wanted to ask this because I just want to understand how your morning routine, like what do you do?
I slept 2 days ago. I slept 10 hours. Last night I slept 8 hours. I've always slept 6 or 7, except for extreme traveling, which was occasional. Again, this is where you realize the world is a headline reading society, not an actual article reading society. People would hear one quote from one keynote and make an assumption. When I am fueled by gratitude and happiness, which gives me high energy when I'm awake. I like to be efficient when I'm awake, but I've long said weekends I'm checked out, 7 weeks of vacation. I sleep plenty. It's just, I think that I'm very high energy when I'm awake because I'm happy, because I love it.
But then how do you get everything done? Like, do you ever get overwhelmed or stressed? Like, is there ever a stressed out, anxious Gary V? Like, and how do you deal with those moments? Or depressed even?
The only time I'm stressed out, depressed, anxious businessman Gary V is when people aren't treating each other well in my organization. It kills me. Culture. That stresses the shit out of me. I got a text last night around a brush up of 2 employees at 10:50, and it took me 10 minutes to be, that upsets me. Getting a text that says XYZ client fired us for $1 million doesn't even register. Getting a text, we didn't win the business, doesn't the money part, fuck the money part. The happiness part. It was the same reason I was bad at Candor. I don't like negativity. So I wasn't able to lead with candor. I don't like negativity around people. So when they're fighting with each other, I get upset. That's why I spend so much time on HR. I'm doing what I'm good at and what I love. There's people that don't get anxious when they ski, when they garden. There's people who don't get anxious and aren't upset and never burn out from playing tennis or golf. My love is my work. as a kid, I shoveled snow. I washed cars. I had, lemonade stands. I did baseball cards. This is the thing that people haven't connected yet. There's a group of us who just love the process of doing business. It's not about the money. It's about the game, the way people look at gardening and skiing and swimming and.
Yeah. It's your flow. That's what you're saying. It's like where you find your flow.
I'll give you an example. My mother's flow is being a mother. My sister was anxious being a mother because her flow was also working, but she thought you had to stay home like my mom. Once my sister created balance between now she's a real estate agent and a mother, she's in her flow. So for my mom, being a mom 24/7 was sheer happiness, no exhaustion. For my sister, because it wasn't purity, an hour of laundry was devastating. For a lot of people that work, it's not their flow, so it's terrible. For me, it's my flow.
So as we enter this, I think this new time where mental health is is in the focus, right? Everyone's working from home. There's a lot of burnout happening. How do you make sure that employees feel like they're seen and heard, and you create a good corporate culture where wellness is integrated? Is that possible?
By seeing them and hearing them. We reinforce our unlimited vacation policy. We talk to our managers about not creating unconscious bias and subconscious bias around people taking time, which is huge. We're implementing a really interesting thing. I own a site, 137pm.com. Please, everybody go check it out. A young male media site to complement purewow.com that I bought. We are now going to be implementing January 1st. It's the first time I'm saying this. My employees don't even know. At 1:37 p.m. Eastern every single day, we're going to be doing a guest 15-minute speaker that's going to come in on Zoom. And the reason I'm doing it for 15 minutes is if I do it at 1:37 p.m. and sometimes it's Shaq and sometimes it's Shira and sometimes it's somebody else coming in, whatever they're talking about for 15 minutes. If it's at 1:37 p.m., my hope is that means at 1:30 to 1:37, people will take 2 seconds and just recalibrate because people are just going Zoom, right? And so I'm hoping to break up patterns, right? Then the 15-minute talk, you got another 8 minutes. So I'm hoping, and by the way, they don't even have to tune in for the 15-minute keynote. So I'm almost mandating a 30-minute break with this concept. So you're doing some things from the top, but most of all what you're doing is you're reminding people that life is a self-awareness game, that a lot of people are blaming companies, but it's actually their own insecurities that they were parented on that are manifesting through the way they're handling their work. So we want to blame technology. We want to blame the bosses. We want to blame the government. But what it really is how we were parented and who we actually are, because we have anxiety everywhere. We're just bringing ourselves to work. This world is just exposing us. Technology is exposing us more so than it's changing us. People want to go there because they don't want the accountability. It's more fun to blame than to be accountable. Shira, it is more fun to blame. Pointing fingers is a fuckload more exciting for people than pointing thumbs. Pointing fingers is a lot more fun than pointing thumbs. And the more you point thumbs and take on accountability and do self-reflection and self-awareness and then deploy self-love and realize other people have shortcomings too, then you can get to a place. Then the blame game is a depressing game.
Yeah. You're preaching to the choir here. I agree. And then my hope is that we can all come together to make sure we're all seeing that because, it takes a village. It takes a community to make change right now.
Yes.
We do have questions.
Real quick, but the biggest part of the community is you with yourself.
You lead by example. It starts with you. Yeah.
It's if you're going to have help, you need to help yourself first and you need to create a framework that allows others to help. And that needs in its core foundation accountability. And I'm telling you, that is a huge unlock. Anyway, keep going.
I want to know where you discovered all this stuff. If you did it in therapy or through your own work or what happened.
I think my mom parented me in a way. I think being an immigrant and not having much, my circumstance created it. I think therapy and just thoughtfulness. I'm an observer by nature, which has made me good in what I do, but that also allows me to observe bigger things. I think caring about it, again, I think when people realize that it's not about the money, it's not about the accolades, when I do this keynote, as incredibly humbling as it is to be a keynote here and do this fireside, I'm coming into this with the mindset of say one thing that starts the process for one person to get to a better, happier place. When that's your KPI, everything changes.
Okay, well, speaking of which, we do have a lot of questions. I want to get to them because we don't have a lot of time. We could continue talking about this forever. I love it. So one question, what can virtual event organizers learn from Twitch? Are you into Twitch right now?
I am into Twitch. I remember the day I went from just on TV. I'm actually wearing a version 1 hat, the esports team I own with the Minnesota Viking owners, the Wilfs in this arena. What they can learn is that iconic pillars of culture can pop up at any time. Let me remind people that hip hop is a modern day phenomenon. Esports, UFC, mixed martial arts. These are 3 major things in our system. Influencers on social media. All 4 of the things I just mentioned, non-existent 40 years ago. Didn't exist. So the biggest thing you can learn from Twitch, its success, and people being into esports is in the rest of our lives, there will be many things that come along that right this second do not exist and become an entertainment, an escapism, a framework that impacts billions.
I love that. Do you think virtual events are just going to grow right now, or are we going to get sick of them?
I think virtual events are going to evolve in a great way. I think there's going to be mixed. I think real life events with virtual elements are so cool. Imagine a week's worth of virtual events leading up to the weekend that the real thing happens. Imagine being at the real thing and there's virtual ones going on at the same time. I think virtual events themselves in a halo are going to incorporate people more. Like, for example, I wish I could see 75 people's faces, even if they were small boxes right now on the right side. The chat stream, for me, that's good because I'm chaos improv. For other people, that would distract them, but give me the option. So I think there's going to be innovation.
Yeah. Chaos improv. That's a new one I haven't heard before. So this one, how do you see business marketing strategy change in this pandemic climate? Also, do you predict a major shift to cater to the new generation? How?
Well, I think the shift to the new generation is happening. Therefore, the world's being forced into this, not the other way around. The OGs have not been able to convince people to watch more television and read more newspapers and listen to more radio. They would have chosen to. They've had to adapt to podcasting, social, mobile.
Yeah. All right. We have someone, I keep thinking there's gonna be a name, but it's all anonymous. What do you do in your company to move people away from blame to accountability? And you talked about it, but like when you see someone doing that, what do you actually say to them? Like, how do you manage that?
We historically managed with sunshine and honey and deliciousness. Hey, Shira. Hey, listen, sometimes in meetings, when you start talking over Carol, who's on her first day, you're really creating a fear-based, hey, just can you give it some thought? And I would do that 4 times. What I'm trying to become now is do that the first time, but the second time saying, look, Shira, you are politically undermining people in rooms. You are making people feel insecure and you're hurting the culture, and the company now has to overthink how to manage you in meetings versus actually work on the work. So to be very frank with you, this is a warning. And if the behavior continues, you're not going to be here. And by the way, I love you. Like, you've done a great job to get to this point and you were a great executor, but now as a manager, you have some shortcomings. And I think it's around insecurity. How do I make you feel safer? But you cannot make people feel this way. So that's the evolution.
Hey, looks like you've practiced that. I love that. You mentioned that you keep an eye on anything that reduces friction or anything that makes things faster, but how do you balance this out with the growing hypotheses that human-centered design leads to harmful companies?
That I think the conversation around harmful companies is immature. I think we're in the phase right now of the demonization, the social dilemma, this, that, the other thing. The reality is we are struggling with adding the second part of accountability. If you do not like what a platform is doing for you because of its lack of friction, you can unsubscribe it. I equate this conversation to alcoholism. We've had a very mature, we're now very deep in alcohol culture, that where now we talk about it is a disease for some people, which deserves a certain way to be dealt with. However, the majority of people are capable of finding their balance. Everybody here, if they're so unhappy and insecure, can delete Instagram off their phone. When I was growing up, magazines were bad guys and girls because they were showing Kate Moss at 85 pounds and every girl was throwing up in their bathroom to look like it, right? So we were demonizing that platform. We have a very immature conversation around social networks right now where it was nirvana when you and I were there early, right? Utopia. Now it is this massively demonized thing. The answer is absolutely in the middle, and it centers around accountability. Like parents that allow their children to be in their room, locked in their room for 15 hours, want to blame the phone. How about you actually communicate with your child and you take time out of your day to actually have a relationship with your child instead of blaming Snapchat? You know, it's fascinating. And that's why, so what do I think? I think that people, we have this conversation around fast food. Fast food is inexpensive. It's very convenient. And our society has learned how to balance when to eat chicken nuggets and when not to. And so this notion that woe is me, this machine, these evil people behind this algorithm are ruining society, these platforms are exposing us. They're not changing us to the degree that people want. People just don't like what they see when we get unveiled.
True. And I think the more we've even held fast food companies accountable, they've even decided to step out, because if you don't call people out, they could be like, you know how it works. It's like, I just could keep going.
Yeah, but like, here's how they step up. They show you how many calories it is, which is amazing. And I'm excited about that. I'm thrilled for every social media post to say, be careful, don't use too much time. I'm thrilled if Apple wants to shut down my phone after 8 hours.
Yeah.
Except if I want to use it for 9 hours. What people right now are asking for is censorship. They don't realize it. Instead of accountability, they want government interference, or like for these companies to be held accountable. You want somebody to be held accountable? Start with your fucking self first.
And what if you've done that and then it's still a shit show? Excuse my language.
Then you go to the modern conversation. Thank God that therapy is not the stigma that it was 50 years ago.
But meaning it's still a shit show outside of you, meaning the world around you. Like, you know, I mean,
it's always a shit show, Shira. Like, I was born in a communist country. Like this, you know, this entitlement that the world should be like, there's always going to be stuff. We have to think about what we can do about things. You can control your household. Tobacco companies have huge warnings on them now. You know, it's about education.
Yeah.
You know, so what? Let's stop using our phones so we can just sit in front of the television. Like you're like people like you need to be educating that taking a hike or meditating or drinking water, or like the information's out there. The information's out there. You have to seek it. You have to want to change.
Yeah. I mean, I think and we can get into this also. This is like so many interesting, kind of conversations, because I agree, but I think the more it becomes the norm to ask for those things and the more people are pushing for it and leading by example, then corporate culture kind of steps in and goes, they realize they need to do it too. So it's like, it kind of works in a balance, like in a relationship, right? It needs to be
but to your point,
symbiotic.
But corporate follows humans. If everyone becomes available, you know, everyone talks all this talk on keyboard warriors, but their actions are different. Do you know how many Americans are about to not vote in a week?
Vote, by the way, if you're in the US.
Who have talked nothing but unlimited amounts of shit in either the left or right direction for months and will not vote on Tuesday? The hypocrisy in human society today is laughable. Accountability will help so many people. Go ahead.
So what do you think of companies making statements supporting activism that may not be genuine? How can companies promote transparency and empathy in these efforts without sounding like they're just jumping on the bandwagon for sales? And I'm sure you probably dealt with this with companies you worked with as this whole summer.
Nobody cares about your Facebook ban if you're not doing the right. Like, it's just so silly. The answer to the question is a great one. By living the truth. You're way better off not saying something if you're not there than saying something and being half pregnant or being fake.
It's like when NFL made a statement.
That's right. That's right.
Gary, besides being a Jets fan, what has been the worst investment of your time?
By the way, I love the person that asked that. Let me just tell everybody, if you want an insight to me, being a Jets fan has been the greatest investment of my time because I actually enjoy the journey. Back to everything we've been talking about for the last 45 minutes. I don't think of things as wasted time. You know, if you talk in money standpoint, I spent the first 13 years of my life building an enormous business for my dad and left with nothing. Nothing. You know, like had to start VaynerMedia in a conference room at Buddy Media because not only did I build a huge business for him, if I wasn't a family member, I would have at least got paid well, you know, for building something from 3 to 65 million. When you build a family business for your parent, you're not making a lot of money because nobody does in a family business because the business is the other child. And so, you know, but I think of that as the greatest use of my time. My dad is going to die one day and I'm going to sit there after my massive cry session and say, thank you, God. Thank you, God, for letting me work in that store from 14 to 34 so much. I have so many more memories than my brother and sister have or that I could have. And so I think it all depends on how people think about wasted time. I think 0.0 about wasted time. I do not fear wasting a second. I like to be efficient, but I never critique what I did as a waste of time because it gave me experiences, happiness, escapism, financial. They all go in different buckets. There is no wasted time if you choose to not think of it that way.
What are 3 things you wish you knew when you were starting VaynerMedia?
That's a great question. I wish I knew something about the advertising industry because I came in raw. You know, it's funny. Let me answer this differently. Most of the things that I didn't know became my advantages when I started Vayner, because I did media and creative together, which is clearly the answer to the digital age. I hired non-agency people that didn't come with baggage. The things that I didn't realize was that people had disciplines like strategy, creative, account. And I thought too omni. I thought everybody could do everything. And that wasted some time, but not really because I learned from it and we are who we are today. Those are the themes more so than 3 things I wish.
Yeah. Do you think Instagram Reels is the same opportunity for organic as compared with TikTok? What do you think of all these new features Instagram always comes out with just to compete with other companies?
I think it's smart. I think if Instagram didn't come out with stories, Snapchat would be the biggest platform in the world. I think it's smart.
Yeah.
They don't all
IGTV. Yeah.
You know this, Shira, like they don't all hit, but let's not be confused. Instagram stories disproportionately changed the outcome of Instagram and Snapchat. And so for Facebook Inc., that was good. I think Reels has more organic upside within the Instagram ecosystem. Ironically, something me and my team, I was making fun of myself with my team 2 days ago because I don't make as many Reels as I should. I don't even really have the full answer yet, but within the Instagram ecosystem, I do think it has more potential. I don't think it has more potential than TikTok as a macro, so I would answer no, I don't think so.
What do you think about the trend of internalization of ad agencies services within companies?
I think it's going to ebb and flow. I think, you know, brands are going to build internal shops. They're going to realize the strengths and weaknesses of them. And I think you'll see brands have mixes of external and internal partnerships. And so I think it will ebb and flow. I already have clients who've already shut down their internal shops. I have clients that are asking us to build their internal shops in conjunction with us having some fees. And I have some clients starting the process of building their own internal shops. And I expect that to always be a constant ebb and flow within every organization in perpetuity.
Someone said, love the mission-driven DTC comment. What stage do you invest at?
That's a great question. I go the gamut. I'll go A. Or seed, excuse me. If you show me an entrepreneur where she's already done something twice and this is her 3rd rodeo and she's done it successfully twice and she's the most passionate about peanut butter, you'll see me write a check before she's done with her pitch. I'll also pass on things in Series B because I'm like, they're just running math arbitrage. They don't have the creative layer. They definitely aren't building brand. So I'm agnostic on when I'll come in. I'm just looking for certain characteristics.
Someone says, I'm a huge fan of yours. What advice would you give to a 37-year-old mom of 3 who just finished her degree and wants a career change? Where do I start?
LinkedIn. Make unlimited content on LinkedIn of your opinions and observations of the new industry you want to be in, whether it's in video, written form. LinkedIn organic reach is working. You may say one thing that catches the eye of one recruiter or one executive and change the course of your life. This is back to 2007, 8, 9 social media when it was all utopia. One piece of content can change the course of your life. Please go on LinkedIn if you're trying to change your career and make your observation around the movie industry, around the ski industry. Scratch your own itch. What do you see wrong? Write a manifesto, make a video. One piece of LinkedIn content is all it takes for you to actually change your career at 37.
How are you working with your company and other companies on equity and inclusion right now?
Dictatorship. I used to hate creating status quotas. I thought that if you looked at the history of colleges and other institutions doing it, it left a lot to be left desired. However, we are mandating D&I in levels, in C-suite, and in bringing consultants from C-suite to entry level, mandating a certain level of D&I, because it was proven to me that the company, even with my intent, even with Claude Silver's intent, even with all the D&I leaders we had, we were unable to be phenomenal at it. We were in the 10 years, we were solid at it, sometimes remarkable, sometimes atrocious. And I need a steady flow, just like I need in finance to make sure that the P&L is balanced. I need a steady flow. And so I've been interviewing chief diversity officers who will have a very big remit and a very big seat at the table. And so it's been a really fun process, to be frank, of going through the interview process, and I'm still in it as we speak. And while I've been doing that, I've been mandating a level of really, on the women front, on the Latino front, on other parts, we were really in a phenomenal shape. We were not where we need to be on a black front, and that's what we're addressing now.
Yeah, I think that's really important in recognizing
it. It goes to accountability.
Yeah.
Right? It goes to accountability. Like, I went on a Zoom in front of the whole company, and I'm like, look, whether it's bad stacks in the cafeteria or it's not enough black leaders, 100% of this is on me. Because I've empowered the people to take care of this. I made that choice. So I think it starts with accountability, and I think it starts with action. And so I'm excited about it. Like, Vayner speakers, black diversity was through the roof. My investments are through the roof, but Vayner wasn't at enough of a right place. And I think there's some macro issues with advertising, but that's the excuse everyone uses. We're just hiring from outside of advertising if we have to, and that's what we're doing.
That's awesome. As we wrap things up, is there anything else you want to share with everyone here at C2 today?
Yes. Creative and media together to create insights is the missing element for so many of you. Please, my incredible art people, don't demonize math and analytics. Please, my incredibly smart math people, stop making fun of creative. Without the harmony of the two, and without the humility of listening to the end consumer to then help you ideate above and beyond it, you will become a dinosaur. And when I think about this, the iconics, the people I put on huge pedestals, Sid Lee's, Wyden's, Chris, but there's so much incredible talent, but there's a need for contemporary humility and process for there to be prosperity over the next decade. And whether you're a brand, a DTC brand, an agency person, humility and curiosity need to become foundational in the creative process. Right now it's audacious, political, and there's a lot left to be desired. I would argue the creative agency landscape is the least creative industry I've come across in my 25 years, which is just devastating because the humans in it started off incredibly creative, but the machine sucked the creativity out of them. And the audacity of creative directors imposing their will on junior creatives, being the judge and the jury. There's just so many dynamics that could be better. They say things like good ideas can come from anywhere, but the process doesn't allow it. There's so much opportunity. Please, let's make the creative industry creative again.
I love that. Well, Gary Vaynerchuk, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure, an honor to speak to you here today on C2, and to everyone who watched from around the world. Thank you. We so appreciate you. Again, you know where to follow him at Gary V. I'm at Shira Lazar. Yes, this has been awesome. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And enjoy the rest of your time here at C2.
Cette conférence vous a été présentée par This talk was presented to you by LENOVO. Mesdames et messieurs, c'est maintenant l'heure du lunch. Les activités reprendront cet après-midi. En tout temps, vous pouvez continuer le réseautage via Braindate. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now lunchtime. Join us again this afternoon. At all times, you can continue networking by booking a Braindate.
you.